Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Today on Conversations with a Chiropractor, we are joined by Britta Carlson, a pediatric occupational therapist, entrepreneur, and the visionary force behind 3 women-driven ventures. Through women-led solutions, she manages rental properties and vehicles and offers design and lifestyle solutions that reflect her passion for transforming spaces and creating opportunities. She also founded MedPros Share, that blends therapy services with digital home programs for parents and children, while also focusing on empowering families through advocacy and understanding and accessing the special education system as an advocate. And with Epic Kids Development, Britta equips parents and caregivers with the tools to ensure their children thrive by age 5. From evidence-based digital resources and kindergarten readiness posters to upcoming rental toolkits and themed early childhood kits, an area of 90% brain growth for children. I was first drawn to Britta's story when I saw a post on social media about her manifesting her dream home in just 80 days, a testament to her belief that with vision and action, lifestyle itself can become a business venture. Welcome to the podcast, Britta.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to chat with you today, but let's go straight to this manifesting your dream home. Tell me how that began.
It started 8 years ago, I would say, was the beginning of gratitude journaling for me. I was pregnant with my firstborn and couldn't figure out what was off in my life. So I found myself in the self-help aisle of the library doing as much research as I could. In the end, I ended up finding out it was really that I had learned my husband was having an affair. I would be going through a divorce, as well as bringing a baby into the world at the same time. And so through that venture, I knew that having a positive mindset was pivotal to success. So I began doing a page a day, keeps the doctor away, was kind of my mindset.
Yeah.
And some days it was hard, right? But we know psychologically that 3 messages of gratitude that you reflect on per day will make you 20% happier at the end of the year. So I thought, well, if I do 3, that's great. But what if I did a whole page? So I started with that, and that really was the anchor.
And I mean, let's just kind of go back to the magnitude of what you're going through. So you're married and you're excited to welcome your first beautiful child into the world. And basically everything crumbles, like everything that you knew to be true. Your husband's having an affair. You're going to be a single mother. And this is how the gratitude is born. That's pretty amazing.
Yes. And then fast forward to the practice of what it looks like today is I read Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning, while I was pregnant with my second. And he breaks it down into simple steps that you can do with less than 10 minutes a morning. And he calls them savers. And it breaks down to silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing. So you can break that down even into like a minute per day of each of those. And that's the first thing you do in the morning. And that creates your miracle morning. So my scribing is my gratitude journaling. And given those steps, that's what I did through my entire second pregnancy and leading up until her birth. And the 80 days prior to her birth, what I heavily focused on was writing out exactly the dream home I wanted to have that forever home for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I had manifested the house before that. But what you need in manifesting is to be very specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
God blesses us when we know exactly what we want. And it was interesting because I had said for that house, I would love to, see the lake. I would love to be able to have a fireplace. I'd love to be able to have a bathtub. So interestingly enough, the house, you could see the lake, but you couldn't access it. There was a hot tub outside, but not one tub inside. So with littles, that was like, oh, I missed that specific thing. And then the fireplace was outside.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, it was very close. It was exactly what my list said, but it wasn't specific enough.
Yes.
And that house I then dubbed the Peaceful Palace because it had a covered porch on a second floor with a balcony that I had a yoga mat and a pillow. And that's where I would sit and meditate and gratitude journal and really hone in what I wanted for my life. And so the next round, it was very clear. I want my feet to touch the sand before a road. You know, there's beautiful properties like on South Lake Street, right? But you have to cross a road.
Right.
So I thought, I'm going to get right down to the nitty gritty of the dreams. And then the beautiful part of Hal Elrod's method is you can take your manifestation to a whole nother level if you can place yourself in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take the next minute after reading those affirmations, which would say, my feet touch the ground in the sand before a road, you know, all of these clear objectives like a goal, but as if you already have that goal. And then you close your eyes and you picture yourself walking out your front door, walking through the beach, walking into the lake. One of my other major goals at that time was to be able to birth my daughter without any interventions. And of course, I had to fight the medical community and, you know, inaccurate diagnoses of gestational diabetes and all these different nuances. But all the right people came together, from holistic routes to medical routes, that made it all align in my perfect natural birth, but in a hospital setting with all women there. And I was able to just meditate through it. Those 80 days brought me to 3 days before I birthed my daughter, Brave. Brave, the name, because I did it on my own. We closed on the house. I had my big old belly there, and the moving truck came, and everything happened in the right time. And I got to come home to the house that I manifested for the last 80 days.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
And not that I'm disagreeing with the 80 days, but you had really started this practice in a different form. And I think that what we do is just because of what we know. And then the more we know, the better we do. How you made those really specific changes to your dream home. I love that. You know, when I think about manifesting, sometimes I think that the biggest obstacle in myself is doubt, right? Like, but I doubt it, but I doubt that it's going to happen, but I doubt that it can be real. What would you tell someone? Would you say that it's like training yourself to feel it, to be in it, like the repetitive nature of that?
I think I would respond to that in twofold. The first would be, I always ask myself and others, does that serve you? Does that thought of doubt serve you? Does that feel good to you or not? If it doesn't feel good to you, don't put it on repeat. And then the second would be, we need to treat ourselves like our own best friend. So would you tell your best friend who's telling you everything about her dream house, oh, I doubt that you can make that happen? No, you wouldn't. You would say, that's beautiful. I hope that happens for you. And I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. So you kind of have to, you have to teach yourself that, right?
Yes.
In the lifting world, when I was competing, we worked with a phenomenal psychologist that was also our yoga instructor. And she worked with us on visualization a lot. And she taught us that, you know, when those thoughts would come in, like for me, every time I saw 300 pounds on the bar to deadlift, I thought, oh gosh, that's 3 of me stacked there and only 1 of me approaching. But I could lift 295 till the cows came home. And we had no cows. But then you hit 300 and it was a total mental block. And so she taught us the skill, cancel. So anytime you have a negative thought come in or self-doubt, you just say in your mind, cancel. And it no longer exists. It's wiped out. So that's one tool to help stop the negativity from perpetuating itself.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I did a podcast in January about like negative self-talk, but there are so many and yet so few pieces of advice that really, really are helpful. That is helpful. I love it.
For sure.
I love the cancel.
Yeah. I think it's also really important that we look at our own lives. Like we're in the driver's seat. Sometimes when we become wives and mothers, we're either in the passenger seat when we become a wife, or we're in the back seat when we have a baby, putting the nook back in and doing all these things. And we forget that really we're the drivers of our life still, and that we still have our own self autonomy and our self identity and our own goals and dreams.
And that we can create our own reality. Isn't that like the shift too? Like to think about, oh, this happened to me, but maybe this happened for me.
Yes.
And what we can control and how we can change our thinking, and that can change everything.
Like create is one of my favorite words because like as women, we're natural creators, right? We give life to this earth. And so when we think about the life we have and the way we want it to be, we are the canvas, we are the painter, and we're holding the pen, the keyboard to write the rest of our story. And sometimes we like to blame all these other circumstances of, why did this happen? And how come I can't see the big picture? But like, we're not supposed to know the whole thing. We're supposed to learn and evolve through it.
Exactly. Yeah. I love looking at Facebook and Instagram and being inspired by some of your amazing posts. But sometimes we are in the muck, right? We are in the mud. We are in the struggle. The struggle is real. And what would you say to someone, maybe they're slipping a little bit into victimhood? Maybe they're slipping a little bit into martyrdom. Would you say that you always come back to gratitude as that beginning point of getting your mindset right?
I would say whenever I feel like I'm slipping into that, like, why are things a little off? I look back at usually at my high, right? Maybe I've set my gratitude journal on over by the fireplace instead of on my nightstand. And now I haven't done it for a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going back to those rituals that ground us and give us perspective. So we have to, again, like flip the switch. That's a book on resilience that often refers to flip the switch is a like icon for overcoming barriers. Is like if you're in the dark, flip the switch, turn the light on, figure out what makes you happy, what drives you. Happy is a temporary state.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we focus too much on that. We're not always supposed to be happy. I remember one of the first times my daughter saw me cry. And I think she was like 4 or 5, old enough to communicate that she was like, "What's wrong, Mommy? I never see you cry." And I thought, I'm feeling you. I want you to see me cry. I want you to know it's okay to cry. But I thought as a single mom, I need to be so strong for her all the time. But really, they need to see that those times that you fall apart and how you get back up and how you flip the switch to model that behavior for them.
Yeah.
What surprised me is finding out that authenticity has a higher vibrational frequency than even love.
I don't know if I saw that on your social media post, but I've seen that recently. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I loved that. One of my podcasts, my daughter interviewed me, and I think she asked like which qualities like you look for in a human. And I said, authenticity and loyalty. Like those are like the top 2 things that I want. And yeah, instinctively, I just want to be authentic with people
Right.
in that high vibration.
Agreed. And I think sometimes that can get tricky because it's not always positive, right? If somebody's in the muck, to say, I've been in the muck too, and I'm going to, Brene Brown, one of her awesome little caricatures is somebody's down in a hole, right? And people are looking in like, what are you doing down in that hole? It's cold. Why are you there? And, the next person comes by and is like, I don't know why you don't just like try to climb out. And then the next person throws down a ladder and climbs down with a sandwich, splits the sandwich in half and says, how you feeling? Let's talk about it. Sometimes you have to get in the hole with people in order to kind of come out and find their authentic being.
Yes.
So I think as women, we're like so often silenced and we think that we can't share our stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's changing now.
Yeah.
When you reflect on all the Disney movies we grew up on, right? Like The Little Mermaid, she loses her voice. Trying to find a positive maternal figure in a Disney movie is quite hard when you start to think about it.
They're all dead.
Lust or mean or evil.
Yes. There was a time in my kids' lives we were watching all those old Disney movies and they were like, "Are you going to die?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh. No, but how bizarre that this is like what we're seeing over and over."
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's playing part into like the legacy I want to leave. I started writing kids' books that she is the heroine in the story, and they're in fields that normally we don't see a woman, right? So, for example, in utilizing AI or in tech-based skills or in the fiber optics industry, I want my daughter, her dad is in fiber optics, and I want her to understand that setting, and I want her to see herself in the field with a clipboard and understanding how we get internet on our phones. And then for grandparents to be able to read that story, see the little girl in the end, maybe building out her own network, right? And putting herself in that story.
I've thought this for both my daughter and my son. Like, I want them to believe that anything is possible in their life, that they can literally do anything, whatever they want.
Right.
Whatever it is. Like, you're not good at math, you're going to figure that out. You're going to overcome that. Like, what's your natural gifting? You can conquer it, right?
Yeah.
Like the classic story that I've used, one of my high school math teachers said, "You're just not good at math." How many years did I think, I'm just not good at math? Well, I'm a business owner and math is a part of my everyday life and world. I am plenty good at math.
Right.
Yeah.
It's those stories that have perseverated, right? Through childhood, that it's like, cancel. But best friend, you're just not good at math. No, I'd sit down and help her if I'm good at it,
So tell me a little bit about, so you're an amazing manifester. I love it. Love the gratitude journal, which if you follow me on socials in Britta, you're going to see a picture of that later. This beautiful gratitude journal your daughter Brill actually made for you, right?
Yes. So I was sad one day because you use it every day and the binding went. And I just said, she's always got the hot glue gun on because I want to build creators in the world. And so I have multiple stations throughout the house that have anything from recyclables to hot glue guns to paints to just have stations to create. And she went downstairs and she said, "Can I take your journal?" And I said, "Yeah, could you just hot glue the binding on?" And she came back probably an hour later with felt and part of flowers and crayons and a pencil sharpener and colors and just made it beautiful and functional again.
I'm looking right at it. So every day, though, you're an entrepreneur. You are an educated woman. You are doing all kinds of amazing things in our community. Tell me a little bit about your day-to-day job.
That is a great question. So every day it looks so different. And I think that's what I love about being self-led is every day can look different because, monotony is like the enemy for me. So I like that it looks very different. Just the other day, didn't have my girls for our Wednesday night and it was cleaning out a rental house's gutters. And then the next morning it's reviewing a poster series that's going to help Children Thrive by 5, where that 90% brain growth window is. I'm so excited to launch this poster series that we've been working on that breaks down ages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and different skill sets that all play a role into kindergarten readiness.
Wow. So this would be for parents, like you're targeting parents as they're either stay at home with their children or they're sending them to daycare. But these are sort of like checklists to see, like, is my child on track?
Correct. Making it simple so that you can look up either in a daycare center or at home. You've got them in your playroom or the kids' room. You can look at the scissor skills poster and know, by 2, they should be snipping. By 5, they should be able to cut out a detailed shape. But if we don't have that roadmap from 2, 3, 4, 5 in our face, it's not our area of expertise, right? You wouldn't know it otherwise. I found it fascinating working in 0 to 3 with kids that had developmental delays, that most parents, I would say 95%, had not given their 12-month-old a crayon because 12-month-olds put things in their mouth, right? And you don't think to give them a writing utensil. But at 12 months, they should be scribbling with a crayon. So if we don't give them that, all of their pre-writing shapes are delayed. And then going into kindergarten, right, they're not ready. And then we put this unrealistic expectation on one human being to have 20 to 30 kids within a year writing their names, beginning sentences and words. And it's like we need to do the heavy work in the 0 to 5 where that 90% brain growth is, and not be investing, like college, right? We spend thousands of dollars at college.
Yes.
But we're looking for the cheapest daycare when we have a 90% brain growth window. So I'm really trying to rework how parents and caregivers can be on track with presenting and creating an environment that allows children to reach their milestones, stacking blocks, great problem solving skills, how we kind of measure cognition in little ones. Well, if you don't know what size tower they should stack by when, and with what size blocks, like most assessments are 1-inch cube.
Mm-hmm. Britta, my mind goes back and, I'm not going to go into regret. I'm not going to feel very sad right now. So my kids are a just graduated senior and an incoming senior, right? 22 months apart. 18 years ago when I had Noah, I hate to say it, but a lot of parents are in survival mode. They're like, let's just really try to do some basic things like, are their physical needs met? Like, are we loving them enough? Let alone all of these details, I'm sure that I failed miserably because what direction did I have? You go to the pediatrician, they say, how much do they weigh? Are they growing? Yes, check, bye. Like, what other resources does a person have? And I had the blessings of having some nannies who were wonderful people, but it's not like they have this information.
Right.
I sort of feel like we were just kind of trying to do the best we could to get enough sleep, get some good nutrition, make sure their spines were cleared chiropractically. This is amazing. This would be such a gift to so many families.
Yes. And I really think just even in like the childcare environment, the providers are usually high school to early college. They don't know those developmental milestones, but if we put them right where they need to be, where the children are, I think that can help shift the dynamic to know what to present, to identify who's behind, or even a child that, I worked with a child that was 2 years gifted and she was starting to have some behavior concern. And I said, well, because she's surrounded by peers that are functioning 2 years lower than her, she needs more cognitively to be engaged and not act out. So it's really interesting kind of when we zoom out on life because, yes, like I think that's also part of the system that's been broken is we have to have two parents going full speed ahead to just make the bare minimum right now, I feel, for most families. And that's, I think, something that is broken in our system. And what is part of my goal for my children is to be able to invest in properties and invest in different streams of income that can give them the choice to be home with their children when they have.
Yeah.
It's about the blend, just have the choice.
Yeah.
So many of us haven't had the choice. And right now, my life, the standard day, I might be flipping a rental car. So I might be detailing out a car with my little one climbing over the seats. But the beauty is I get to be with her. Could I make 5 times more doing a OT session for that hour? Yes. But do I get to have my daughter right there? No. So I have shifted all of my career goals to be able to be the most present mother I can possibly be. And my work schedule falls heavy on every Wednesday and every other weekend. And I've figured out a way to make it more of a lifestyle. If I want a nice car, I have to rent out a nice car that pays for my nice car.
Let's talk a little bit more about this. Like if someone in the Marquette area or in the Upper Peninsula, my husband is officiating a wedding in a little while and we got the Turo rental.
Yes.
I don't know if you know about this. So we're going to rent this kind of cute Jeep, right? With a top that comes off and all this stuff. Well, Turo is like basically like sort of like Airbnb where it's someone's car. So you created your own, I hate to say the brand name, but Turo.
It is
experience.
Turo.
It is.
Yes.
Oh my
So, and it was just recently rented for a wedding because it's white.
Oh my gosh.
And is a Yukon, so it can haul things and also escort the bride, which was not on my radar as a potential avenue. But yeah, I've been renting that out since March, and that has, like I said, helped pay for my new car. And I love feeling safe as like a single mom. And I think as mothers, that's something that has been very undervalued. I don't think most men realize that's on our radar oftentimes.
To be safe,
To feel safe, right?
Yeah.
Like I love having a big vehicle because I feel like if I were to get in an accident with my babies, we're going to be safe. So that's worth it to me to detail a car a few times a week and flip a car.
Yeah.
And that just affords us a lifestyle that fits with my goals.
Mm-hmm. And you as a mother, your main goal is to be with your children and to give them a lifestyle that has a mother present. And yet you have all this knowledge and all this information. Do you ever feel pulled? Do you ever feel conflicted? Like, oh, I have to get this out to the masses, or I want to do this. I don't know.
Definitely. And that's where I continually keep learning, like perfection is the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rethinking a lot of life through this new concept of a sharing economy, right? We're sharing my car for someone else that needs it, that can benefit from it. In the Airbnb world, I'm sharing my house that someone else can benefit from that also helps pay my mortgage. I just recently became a baby quip provider, which allows me to share the educational toys and toolkits that I've made for my own kids to be rented by not only families traveling to the area, but families locally that are maybe minimalist and they don't want to have bins of toys that are outdated for their child's age. I mean, in the 1 to 3 window, they fly through different toy needs, right? From a stacking ring all the way to magnetiles. Do you want to buy and store and resell all those things? Or would you rather just rent a box of those things that they need and switch them out along with knowing what developmental milestones come with that?
My mind is blown. I can't even fathom. Like 18 years ago, this didn't exist. We didn't have this choice or this option. So it's like I kind of think that you're really in the front of this movement. You're bringing this to Marquette and to the Upper Peninsula. I never would have thought about this. I never would have thought it existed.
Right. And I kind of struggled because I thought I had a family at one point that was like, oh, I really love this train table. Like, this would be so good for my son who's learning to pull to stand. It's like, well, that window is very small. Once they pull to stand and they have it mastered, you don't need the table. But why pay for a $1 table? You should be able to just rent the table until the skills develop. So I've been really working on building out what I can make available in this community. And Baby Quip is typically used for the family that travels in, that needs to rent a stroller, needs to rent a car seat, a crib. But I would like to offer it also more as to local families. What do you need at this phase of life? Or what educational tools and resources could you use that come in a little toolkit? My kids love when I store all of our books by season in like the Christmas stuff, the fall bin. So we just took out all the pumpkin books and they're all just naturally reading, right? But if we didn't have to like store those all and I could share those,
Yes,
how beautiful.
absolutely.
For a fraction of the cost.
And I always say, like, when kids come into my office and they pull out the toys in my toy bin, they're so excited.
Yeah.
Only because they're different than what they have at home. My toys are like old and grungy. I have a Spider-Man with only one leg that Val wants me to get rid of. I'm not getting rid of that Spider-Man with
He's
him.
OT approved.
I love him.
Yes. He's learned so many adaptive skills.
Exactly. So what we'll do definitely at the end of this podcast is we're going to have lots and lots of links to all of these spectacular things that you're doing. What else are you doing?
So Women-Led Solutions has kind of been a fun outlet for me. I've really kind of fallen in love with design. And I think when you put your mindset into, if you were to rent your house out as an experience, right? Airbnb has launched experiences.
Yes.
It makes you think in a whole different way about your home, right?
Yes.
Like I had a little balcony off the side of my bedroom that I never had chairs or anything on there. And I thought, well, if I were to rent this, what would I change? Well, I would put chairs out here. Over here is an awkward nook, but I would put a little coffee maker with a coffee station that you could stop and have a cup of coffee. Downstairs, I just started transforming spaces and moving things around that I had already had that made it an experience. 2 little mini chairs with a library shelf with the books that fit that season, right?
Wow.
Now you're curating your spaces.
Yes.
And I started using AI to help me find recommendations or give me a vision
Really?
or build me a mood board.
Really?
And so now I thought, well, I could offer this as a service. And I've started playing with it with a local builder who, is often asking what color or what tile. And I've been able to mock up, here's a dresser. Should it be painted coral, blue, natural? Here are the mock-ups. This is what it'll look like before you have to make any investment.
Wow.
So that's one fun avenue that I've been playing with. And I think I'm going to begin offering more workshops in that realm.
That's cool.
I just hosted one at DRIFA, and it was a sip and schedule. And it was how to plan out your year at a glance. With what time we're starting, right? As moms, it's like school schedules and sports schedules and work schedules. And a lot of us, right? 60% divorce rate, custody schedules.
Yes.
You kind of have to map your year out
Absolutely.
to know where the kids are for what holiday and
Yes.
what your life looks like. So that was a awesome experience. And I'd love to do more things like that. We got to sit down and talk about what we want to let go of, what, we've held on to that no longer serves us, what bucket list trips we want to schedule, different goals you have that I feel like we almost need permission to invest in ourselves. I'm really working on creating more experiences for women and entrepreneurs, but just to connect, and then also for families in the early childhood realm.
I feel like so many of us, moms, working moms, women, we get stuck in what was, what should be, what must be, right?
Yes.
And I feel like you're sort of popping the top off of that. And you're like, no, we're going to shake this up. I'm going to show you that things can be different. Like you're leading definitively by example. It's pretty spectacular. I tell both my kids, I wasn't able to be home with them as much as I would have liked. It's like the grief of my life. But guess what? I am their nanny. The minute they have a child, I'm dropping whatever I'm doing and I am there. And this is why it's so important that they marry spectacular humans that I adore, which I'm putting into the universe.
Absolutely. 21 suggestions for success. I believe that's by Brown. The first one is who you marry determines 90% of your happiness.
Oh my gosh.
Now, that is in a poster of my most beloved mentor's bathroom. And every time I visit her house, I look at the 21 suggestions for success. And so that's a good place to start too, and probably something I should post in my own bathroom so my girls see it too. And I try to reiterate how important it is to find that provider and protector that we need as women so that we can be the nurturers, because, we sow the field, right?
Yeah.
We nurture the soil. Emery Hall is another one that's a musician's wife. She's a poet, Trevor Hall. His wife is named Emery. And one of her songs I was listening to earlier today, and it's actually off of a Spotify playlist that I had curated for the Sip and Schedule. We were talking earlier about creating sensational experiences and how we're sensory beings. And
yes.
So as I offer workshops, one of the workshops I offered before that was called Life Flow. And it was all looking at an OT-based model that's called Kawa. It was actually formed in Japan. And you draw out your life as if it's a river. And the rocks are like what's impacting your flow. And the driftwood is like what resources do you have that shift the flow, and they come in and they go out, right? Like an education is a heavy front load, but it's going to move and open up your river down the road.
Yes.
And we tied it with meditation and some yoga movement. And at the end, we redrew our life flow and what we want it to look like. And I had also made a Spotify playlist for life flow. So if you find me on Spotify, you can also go through that journey. And I did record it, so I should make that available as well. But back to Emery Hall, one of her songs, which was on that playlist, she says, "What will become of this story inside my chest? Will I excavate it from my bones?" Which I think a lot of us have the fear of excavating our story from our bones, right? Who wants to hear it? Will it help anyone? Give it light, water, air? Will you let it bloom into a garden of flowers? Or will I let it stay and let it be buried and become a graveyard? Are you going to turn your story into a garden or a graveyard?
Mm, that is so beautiful.
It gives you pause. Like, what am I feeding right now? And each day, I think that I keep trying to build, what is the legacy I want to leave for my children?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Britta, I feel like this might be a really beautiful place to end. How do we help our children choose their partners? I mean, I know that example is one and discussing is one. And I've been so blessed with having really open conversations with my son and my daughter, looking at qualities, looking at red flags, making sure that you're with someone who loves and respects you, allows you to be who you are. But like, how can we predict it? And how can we help them choose this? And I mean, I know that God will help them more than I can. I mean, I know it's out of my power, but my husband and I were together for 3 years. You would think that we would have hashed out all of the things that were possible to hash out. Hell no. I mean, like, I feel like even in the 20 years we've been together, we've had so many different seasons, and I'm such a different person, and I've learned so much, and I've broken some bad habits in myself, and I've changed, and I've done my spiritual work. Like, how do we convey this to our kids?
I'm not there yet, so I can only speculate on what I would say and what I would do and what I've been doing. I've been single for so long that, I remember my first date was with myself when my daughter was like a year and a half, 2, and I'd been single for, since her birth. And my sister was like, I think you need to date again. And I said, I think I'm going to take myself on a date first. And I got dressed up and I was nervous on the drive.
Wow.
And I thought, you're coming home with you. You're good. You're safe. It's okay. And I ended up having a lovely time. And I questioned, did I wear the right dress? Everything.
Wow.
And I walked in and a woman said, you look beautiful in your dress. And I thought, thank you. It was like God knew I needed the strength and the courage to enter the arena, right? And like Brene Brown says, you may enter the arena and you may be marred from the experiences, but each of those experiences, I feel like I have tried to teach my children what served me, what didn't serve me. I was very hesitant to introduce, somebody that you were dating to my kids because you're not supposed to do that. But my sister brought up a great point and she said, don't you want to teach your kids that people come into your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime? Would you really want to hold back the power of somebody else's love for your children because you were scared?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oof, no. So I've been very transparent and communicative, with my daughter and, with my older daughter. She now will say, it was funny. We had recently gone on a trip and the male sat in first class and we were in the back. I just said, I'm grateful we were able to make this trip and express lots of gratitude. And now she's kind of also becoming the teacher, which children are a great teacher.
Absolutely.
And she walked off the plane. She goes, why didn't you give my mom that seat up there? I could have died, right? I was like, it's okay. And it was a great dialogue because she knows her worth.
Yeah.
She doesn't want me to settle. And I said, honey, this was a fun trip. This was a family thing. I'm not, dating this person. And she was like, okay, well, I just want you to know that's what should have happened. And I said, I agree. And so we've had many of these conversations down to like the dishwasher broke and she would be like, well, why isn't it fixed yet? I said, great, right?
Yeah.
Who you're dating should be helping you with those things. Or you need to be alone because they're not adding to your life enough, right? And they always have to add to your life more than what you bring to your own. So I would say, make a list of negotiables. Ask your daughter and your son to make them now. Put them under your mattress. And then when they're with that person and you see those traits that you're maybe questioning, you can just simply say like, well, just always go back to your non-negotiables, whether this guy is stand up or somebody you're concerned about. That's just your go-to because I think the more you support them, the less friction you're going to have. And if they know their worth, they won't settle. I mean, I'm single yet because I just feel like I've developed such peace in my life and I know my worth and I don't want to settle.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing I would have them ask themselves, and this is what kind of changed my career path 7 years ago when my daughter was 1 and I had her in full-time care, thankfully with my parents, but not with me. I'm sitting in an office smelling a onesie and looking at her picture and playing audio clips of her crying so that I could let down. It's not the way that others were built, right?
No.
But this one quote changed it for me. It said, if you were to be diagnosed with a terminal illness, there should be nothing in your life that changes. And that's when I put in my notice. And the only regret I had was not doing that earlier.
That's beautiful.
So if you can question if that person would still be in your life, if you were to be diagnosed with a terminal illness, or if you'd say, see, I got a one-way ticket to Mexico with 1 seat, then that's not your person.
Yeah, that's a great check-in. Britta, you are full of so much wonderful, beautiful, inspirational information and stories. I'm so grateful that you were on this podcast today. I know that so many people are going to benefit from what we talked about, and we're going to share tons of links.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at wautierwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wautier on Instagram, or Wautier Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.